A lot of people saw this post tonight for the broadcast, and they assumed that I was going to bash gay people, or speak negative about homosexuality, or you know, um, the act thereof. But no, no, I'm not going to bash homosexuals or use derogatory terms. Not because I'm sensitive, not because I care, not because I'm gay friendly or unfriendly. It's neither here nor there. I don't have a love or hate thing with anybody. I'm just presenting things from a more advanced and intelligent level of this phenomenon that's seeming to take place in this young generation of black children, black kids today, and their young black men and young black women today. This state of confusion over sexuality, right? And you know, their sexual leanings toward the opposite sex or the same sex. Right? There's a lot of questions that are not being answered. I'm noticing in a lot of younger black men and a lot of younger women, young black women, that this sexual confusion is being played upon. Should they be with men? Should they be with women? Or they might feel that attraction to the same sex. It's being played up as a fad in the society as well. And people can only go but so far in blaming society for inducing a certain mentality or a certain preference in people, because societies can't really do that. They can only foster or bring out that which is already in, a question mark inside these people, inside the sexual makeup and decision making of these people. That question mark has to already be there. What I want to explore tonight is who put that question mark there. And I'm not talking about man. I'm not going to blame anybody here, or, like I said, in this physical realm. And I'm not going to blame anybody in this physical state. No one can make you gay. That I agree with homosexuals about. No one can make you gay. You're born that way. And I acknowledge that to be true. You are born that way. Because you got young kids who have, and I'm seeing them younger and younger. That's what inspired me to actually do this broadcast. I'm seeing younger children, like I'm talking about 5, 6 years old, and you already know they're gay already. They might not have had, too much connection with television and things like that, but it's just something in them. You have certain things in you that you're marked with. You understand? You have certain preferences that you're marked with. Just like you have certain people who are born to be leaders. That's not something somebody can make you become. You're born to do that. You can be put in certain situations or exposed to certain things that will make you become a leader, or make you go the opposite way and be a follower and be somebody who does negativity. But that has to already be there. It already has to be implanted in your DNA. It has to be in your mental makeup. It has to be in your memory. The same way homosexuality is. No one can make you be a homosexual. No one can make you be a lesbian. It has to be in your DNA already. We're going to discuss that in great detail tonight. Beyond the blaming of people and society and things like that. Because, like Slick Rick said, society is a weak excuse for a man and a woman. It's a weak excuse for saying that society made people do things. Black people are famous for blaming society for everything. No one makes you do anything. You ultimately make the choice and the decision. It's something in you, whether strong or weak, which will determine whether you take one path or the other. So, as I said, we're going to discuss that in great detail tonight. I am the intellectual Nuben Menkares, and this is State of Mental Radio, and tonight we're discussing the submental confusion and the sexuality of young black people, right? Because, like I said, when I refer to submental, I mean things that are on this realm mentally, on this lower state here mentally, that induces it. Yeah, I'm going to talk about what induces it, what brings it out. Yeah, like I said, we can go into the television, we can go into billboards, posters, where they're making the thing acceptable, right? They're making homosexuality acceptable in this society. But like I said, you got men here, women here who know and are in touch with their sexuality and have that natural attraction toward the opposite sex, who are not phased by these things. You understand? These things have always been going on. If you pay attention, there's always been a heavy undercurrent of homosexuality in the society that they were trying to expose people to. But it didn't stop certain people. It didn't stop me, myself, from being, what's naturally in me to be, and that's a heterosexual man. Same way it won't stop a woman from being a heterosexual, woman who is desirous of male companionship, or vice versa. It's not going to stop you. Nothing's going to make you gay or lesbian. That has to already be in you. Certain things, like I said, can bring it out of you. But what are we talking about as far as what can bring it out? What plants that there? What is that that will be the deciding factor, and whether you're gay or straight? People will go into the scientific thing of it and talk about too much testosterone, too much estrogen, and I've been wanting to talk about women who have too much testosterone, right, versus men who have too much estrogen, and these hormones are what induce the attraction toward the same sex, the opposite sex. If a woman has more testosterone, which is naturally native to a man's genetic makeup, which gives him a natural attraction toward women, facial hair, things of that nature, then he will tend to be more attracted. He'll be attracted to women. But if a woman has the testosterone, more of testosterone than estrogen, then she'll be attracted to women. Vice versa with men who might have more estrogen, and they might be attracted toward women. They might be attracted to other men. It also could be offset in men who have too much testosterone, right? And they're overly aggressive, and these guys are homosexuals. But again, that's an offset in their genetic makeup. Now, like I said, that can be induced in someone. You can give someone natural shots of testosterone in a woman to offset her sexuality, to make her form of attraction toward the same sex. Same way you can do this to a man. Right? Now, here's the thing. I said that a person who is born homosexual or lesbian, right? I said that's the same as a person that is born sterile. What did I mean by that? I just posted that maybe 10 minutes ago on Facebook. What I meant by that was that both are unable to reproduce. Both are able to carry on their genetic bloodline. They're born to not carry on a genetic bloodline. Right? That's the purpose. That's the whole point of it. To stop a genetic bloodline. Right? Now, you have the certain things that men do. What you have in horses, they call it geldings. I don't know how many of you understand what a gelding is in horse language and things like that, but a gelding is a horse that they either fix or sterilize, whereas they can't have either, or the horse is fixed that way. But anyway, the horse can't have any more children or can't continue its bloodline. So what happens? The horse's genetics or DNA dies out. Right? I'm going to say something, and I'm going to take a different approach to this with homosexuality. And that is that homosexuality is a sign of a discontinuing bloodline or race from future beings, from those future beings, from becoming those future beings. I'm going to say it again. Homosexuality is a sign, right, or a mark of of a discontinuing bloodline of a race from those future beings, from that race becoming future beings. Why did I make that statement? I made that statement because, as you notice, a lot of young black men and black women today are having this sexual question, about their sexuality, heterosexuality, homosexuality. And a lot of them are not going to become parents. A lot of them are not going to have children. A lot of them are not going to produce their bloodline or move their bloodline forward. They're not going to continue their bloodline. That's done purposely. That's planted in their DNA not to continue their bloodline. So you have certain people or certain beings in the future where I said, if you notice what I said, a lot of our people are not meant to live into the future. Their bloodline is supposed to stop at a certain point, right? If you are not part of that continuous supernatural bloodline or supreme bloodline or that God genetic, that advanced genetic, that continuing genetic, then there is a stop or a marker on your bloodline to stop reproducing. All right? Same way certain animals and certain plant life things like that will naturally die out. Same thing with a race. So it is not as far stretched to think that there is a genetic marker on certain people on the planet where homosexuality is that stopper, is that stopping point. That's what you're seeing with the black race today. I said that they have a sexual confusion. What is that? What I said last show, that confusion means against the fusion or the coming together of something. So if you have a sexual confusion, or where you're supposed to be, what sex you're supposed to be attracted to, if you have that sexual misconnect or disconnect, what's going to happen? The confusion is that you will not fuse your chromosomes or your DNA or genetic with a woman to continue your bloodline. That's the confusion, the breaking apart of your natural connection with a woman or you women's natural connection with a man. That's the sexual confusion. Your genetic and bloodline is not meant to continue because you really serve no purpose into the future. That's why if you notice with a lot of these younger people and whatnot, they live for the day. They don't think about tomorrow. These tend to be your homosexuals and your lesbians. You understand? They love or they live for the present because there is no future for them. Right? There is no future. There is no continuation. There is no continuation for them. You are going to stop your bloodline. Your bloodline was genetically meant to stop, not continue forward. Because as I said, there is supposed to be an evolution in the bloodline. It's supposed to be an evolution. The people who are here are not supposed to be the same in the continuing evolution. So if your bloodline is not meant to evolve, then eventually what's going to happen? It's going to stop. It's going to stop at a certain point. People think that there's not supposed to be a change in the evolution of a bloodline or a genetic. Black people think that they're not supposed to evolve into anything. They think they're just supposed to stay the same way they are. They don't realize that an evolution is supposed to take place. The reason you're here is for an evolutionary procession, right? They don't realize that. And those people who don't realize that, your bloodline will stop. Just as it is stopping right now. A lot of your children who are having these questions, a lot of your young black men and women who are having these questions, that means that their bloodline will stop. Right? That will not continue. It's not meant to continue. There is no evolution for people who don't think there's an evolution that is possible in that bloodline. That is meant to be a genetic marker. It is a sign and a symbol on your bloodline. People, like I said, can say all day, they can blame society for it. They can sit up here. And I've said it in the past that, certain the conspiracy people will say, homosexuality was induced in young black children. And I was one of the first people to say this. It was induced in young black children, through the Planned Parenthood, through the mothers and things like that, to offset the estrogen and testosterone in the children. Yes, I was the first one to advocate and say that, and I still acknowledge that to be true. However, what determines whether these children are selected and these women are selected versus the women who escape this dilemma? Because certain women will escape this dilemma. Certain women will not. Certain people's bloodlines and genetic are meant to move forward. Others are not. When I spoke about the supernaturals versus the naturals, because I said the naturals were your black race and your supernaturals are your bright race, the people who will come out of the black race, the people who will evolve and keep moving, that is the genetic bloodline that will continue. Your black race is the natural bloodline that will discontinue. It will have a natural disconnect. It will stop. It will not continue into that state of evolution. It's not meant to. Same way you had within the human race, they had somewhat of an evolution where you had the Cro-Magnon man, you had all of these different forms of man that scientists give names to, where it stopped and a different man came out and evolved, and a race of those men or those women died off to give birth to a new race of people. It's the same thing that's going on with us, and it has been continued. We've been going through our own evolution. Certain people are going to think on a higher level, so it is meant for their bloodline to continue. It is meant for their DNA and their genetic to continue. This is why you're seeing a mass number of children, right, who are embracing homosexuality today. It has to do with their genetic bloodline going back. It has nothing to do with them, per se. It has nothing to do with them. That deals with mother, the father, the grandfather, the great-grandfather. That goes back in the genetic, in the bloodline. It goes all the way back. This is why you have to be careful of who you lay down with, who you breed with. You understand? You have to be careful. Because if these people have these leanings already that you're laying down with, 9 times out of 10, they will breed that in their children. You understand that? It's meant for, then you tie your bloodline to their bloodline, and your bloodline will discontinue. Right? This is real. Like I said, this is a mental connection. This is beyond the physical, because everything that's dealing with the physical goes into a mental part before it even starts in the physical. Like I said, people are so focused on, oh, well, how does it happen? Oh, he's trying to be spiritual about it. No, I'm not being spiritual about it. I'm being mental about it. I'm being using that intelligence of the DNA, which puts your DNA here, which continues your bloodline before you come into a physical realm and a physical existence. But people who are focused on the physical are not going to understand this level of discussion concerning the bloodline and the DNA and homosexuality, that it is a mental disorder first and foremost. It is a mental disconnect. Now, I'm not saying gay people are crazy or they off or anything like that. I'm just saying that their bloodline is not meant to continue. If you are disconnected from the mental source and you have no idea what your purpose is for being here, then your bloodline will discontinue. In other words, you have to have a reason for being here. You can't ask these kids right now who are engaged in these things that they're doing what's their purpose for being here. They can't tell you. They don't understand what their purpose is. Everything is of this time. Everything is timely. Everything is in this motion, in this circle, and that's it. They living for the day. There is no tomorrow, so they're not meant to see tomorrow. So therefore, they're producing a bloodline or they're not producing a bloodline because that bloodline is not meant to see tomorrow. It's not continuing forward. Right? We address this in our evolution. We have to, because it's important to know who you are mating with. It's important to know who you are mixing with, because you have certain people who feel this way, and they will continue to act as though they don't have these questions in their head. They will continue to act as though they are straight or that they are of a heterosexual persuasion, and that they desire the opposite sex, when in actuality they have this question in their head. They have this question mark on their DNA, in their genetic. They don't know which way it is to go. They don't understand the whole point beyond just having sex and desiring somebody. They don't understand why their bloodline is supposed to continue. They don't understand that the sexual attraction and the coming together of two people means a continuing bloodline beyond just sex. See, with the homosexuals, it's just sex. They can say it's love and it's desire and whatnot, but beyond that, it's just a connection between two people. That's it. There's nothing beyond that, because they can create nothing beyond that. Usually when a man and a woman come together, the thing they're thinking about is children, naturally. They're thinking about a bloodline, producing a bloodline in a genetic. Homosexuals are not thinking about that. They're thinking about their little connection in their union, and that's it. There's no children coming out of that union. They can say, oh, we can adopt. That's not the same thing. You're not producing a bloodline in genetic. Because when you produce a bloodline in the genetic, that bloodline in genetic is supposed to be a new mindset or the opening of a new door for higher intelligence to come through on this planet. That's the whole point of that. That's the whole point of you producing a bloodline and genetic. I hear people say, oh, well, I don't want to bring any children into this messed up world. Well, your children are supposed to be the answer to a messed up world. They're supposed to be the solution to it. You understand that? Your children are supposed to be a solution to it. Your children and people didn't mess the world up. You understand? They didn't mess the world up. Just like you have people that come here because you can't really mess the world up. You understand? You can mess up other people. You can influence other people. You can vibrate on a low mental frequency and lead people who are mentally weak to a certain level to go against how things are supposed to go in a natural procession, but you can't mess the world up. Because in order for you to mess the world up, you have to be the creator of the world. You have to be the creator of this planet. You can't mess anything up. Everything that you do goes in a natural procession of what's supposed to be done. The people that are here are supposed to be here, and the people who are not going to be here are not going to be here. They're going to be discontinued. Just like you have manufacturers that make things and they discontinue a product, same way God made certain men and women, and he will decide when it is time to discontinue them. Just as he discontinued dinosaurs and all of these other animals that roam the earth, he will discontinue certain people. It's the same thing. Certain people are being discontinued right now. This is what you're watching with the rise of this homosexuality in the younger generations. So when you men and women are blaming society, look at your own bloodline. Look at what it is that your generation or what it is that you produced. Or if you have not produced anything, then you have the answer to why your children are becoming weakened sexually, why they are being steered this way. What is it in your genetic or in your bloodline that is getting them to face in that other direction? It always starts with you. Do you have a purpose? Do you serve a purpose for being here? That answer usually comes in your next generation. It comes in your bloodline. It comes in your genetic. Like I said, people will sit up here and they'll say, oh, well, I don't know why he's taking this approach to it and whatnot. I never heard it this way before and whatnot. Think about it. Think about it really good. Ask your children who have these ideas. Check out what I'm saying. Ask your children who have these ideas and question marks about their own sexuality and their attraction to the opposite. What is it that they want to be in the world? What do they see themselves continuing as? And then you'll get the answer to why they have this question mark in their DNA and in their bloodline and their genetic. You'll get the answer. They'll say they want to do something for themselves, right? They might say, yeah, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer, whatever the case may be. They want to do something for themselves. Nothing beyond that. You can also hear this in the children who are now saying, like I said, they're heavy with this whole mindset. I don't want to have any children. I don't want to bring any children into this world. Right? People are heavy and laden with that. And you have women who are having sexual contact with men, and they're saying, I don't want to have any children. I just want to be with men and this, that, and the third, and blah, blah, blah. Right? They're saying that. But no, in actuality, the whole purpose of being with men over a long period of time is to bring forth life. That's the purpose for you being here. You have genetics, you have organs, you have things to carry children. That's your purpose for being here. It's not about you. It's about a continuing genetic and a continuing bloodline. So people say, I wasn't just put here to have children. That's usually the minds that are open to homosexuality because, like I said, you can just be with, if it serves no purpose in being with a man, you can just as easily be with a woman, or vice versa. You can be with another man because you don't see the purpose in your bloodline continuing. These are the people who are usually open to these ideas. In this society, if you notice that idea of, not having children and things like that, and this whole nonsense about how the world is messed up, like I said, it usually goes hand in hand with the whole homosexuality and alternative lifestyle stance. That we could just adopt children, right? That you can just, raise children, which goes into that whole mindset of, it's all about, an alternative family. But that's a form of what assimilated. Same way sex is assimilated in homosexuality. Same way this family is assimilated. It's not a real family. It's not a continuing genetic or bloodline. However, certain people will take offense to that, but I'm not interested in how people feel about it. I'm stating a fact that it's not a continuing bloodline. You have the people that run the society. They understand about continuing bloodlines and intermarrying and, children being born and whatnot, but they don't want you to see things that way. It was a time, like I said, where we understood our purpose was to bring forth life, to bring forth a higher genetic, a higher intelligence here on the planet, to be the ones who house that, to carry that. That is the disconnect that's missing in this next generation. That's why they can induce these ideas in the children. They are easy targets for these ideas that they consider to be progressive here. You understand? Same sex, pushing homosexual icons and things like that. It appeals to people who are lost, people who have no idea why they're here, people who are not part of a continuing genetic. Generation X, the lost generation. The ones who don't care if they're here today or going tomorrow. The ones who are tattooing their bodies up, getting high, doing all these things because, like I said, they're lost. They don't understand what their purpose is, doing stupid things, ending up in jail forever, all this stuff. It all goes hand in hand. These are people who are running away from themselves. These are people who are running, like I said, they're running just aimlessly and mindlessly through society. This is real. Be careful that your children are not exposed to these people. You should make it your business to constantly tell your children what their purpose is in continuing your bloodline. See, that's something our people don't do. The white man, they do it. The Jews, all these people constantly do this. I'm just using this as an example. It's not even a racial thing. I'm just using this as an example. They're constantly told that their purpose is to continue the intelligence of a bloodline and a people, to carry on. That's the whole point of them existing, which they got from us, because we used to do the same thing. But see, we no longer do that because we lost something in our evolution. We lost something, and that is purpose. No purpose means that you will produce lost people. And when you produce lost people, when there's a question mark in why you're here, you're going to produce children with question marks on why they're here. And that will open up that genetic for homosexuality to come forward. Because now they have no reason for thinking that they belong here or that they will continue on here. It's just about them. It's not about a bloodline anymore. It's about them. It's about what they want to do or what they say, I got the right to do what I want to do. And then, like I said, in that whole movement, in that mindset, they push I-ism or individualism. You understand? You don't feel that you're a part of anything. Look at the people that push this idea like Russell Simmons and do you. Individualism. It all goes hand in hand, but we're not seeing this. A people who feel connected to a bloodline and a genetic is not trying to do you or do them. They're trying to do the collective thing. They understand their purpose in this equation. But people who have this question mark, like I said, that's people who are not focused on the continuation because they're only here for their own pleasure or what they think is pleasurable. You understand? Simulated sex. Ideas where, there is no real biological order to it. Off ideas. You understand? That can only be set in part when there's no forward motion of intelligence. That can be set in place. Your mind is opened up for that. That carries down to the submental. People who vibrate on a submental frequency are people who are below the mental frequency or below the mental reception to pick up higher intelligence to understand why they are here in the first place. Because as you understand it, it's continuing the evolution. But the minute there's a question mark, you drop down beneath this submental influence, which is controlled by these people here who push these ideas and induce this because there was a question mark there in the first place. I want to know, is everybody in the chat room following what I'm saying? You produced a question mark in your bloodline. And that comes by individualism. That comes by the breaking apart of fusion of something. Confusion. Like I said, it's meant to cause that. It's meant to bring your bloodline and your genetic to an end. Because, as I said, people in the future won't have these questions. They won't have these submental desires anymore. Because that's what it's all about. It's a submental desire that was produced in an ignorant people. It's a submental desire that was produced in the people who had a question mark about their existence on the planet. You produce a sterile people physically, and you produce a sterile people mentally. That's why these ideas can creep into their heads. Right? This vibration here in this submental state that is controlled by mankind is low. That is controlled by the humans is low. So all of these ideas float around. But like I said, you open yourselves up to it because you have no purpose. So you have formed a disconnect with the eternal bloodline or the continuous bloodline. You understand that? You're linking up with people who have that question mark about their own bloodline. They don't know why they're here. Like I said, you women, you hook up with men who don't, have no rhyme or reason. They don't know what they're here for. They just screwing and just having sex with you, and then, oops, if I get you pregnant, oh well. Those are the type of males that you laying with. So those type of males produce a question mark in your bloodline and in your genetic. They put your children to come on that submental influence. They put them in line with that submental influence. You understand that? Because they had no rhyme or reason for being here. They don't know. Just because they sound intelligent, they sound smart, and they talking about black this and black that, or whatever they talking about, or metaphysics, or whatever, religion or whatever, they really don't have any idea why they're here. Why it is important to continue the bloodline other than, just some egotistical thing. They don't understand it's here to continue to pull in higher intelligence, advanced intelligence, and an evolutionary mindset to continue toward a super race of people or a supernatural race of people that we're supposed to be moving on a higher level. They don't understand it. They think they're going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. I'm a Muslim, so my son's a Muslim, so his son's going to be a Muslim, and there's no evolution in that. You understand? Or I'm doing this, so my son going to be doing this, I'm going to be doing. No, there's no evolution in that. These are people that produce question marks in the bloodline. That's the disconnect. That's when, like I said, the bloodline, that's when the children start falling into that submental state. Just like the people who sit in the church and they don't understand, they can't tell their children, they can't have real talks with their children about, or they'll be in these things like whatever, Moorish science, whatever. And the children don't understand what the whole purpose of that is. You trying to explain sovereignty, you trying to explain Islam, Christianity, Judaism to them, but they're not really getting it. Because to them, all it sounds like you just repeating something. So now what happens is you produce the disconnect in them. Because you can't tell them why are they here, what is the purpose for them continuing. You can't do that. All you can tell them is that God wants you here to continue in this, that, and the third. That don't mean much to them. That's not real to them. That's not real to them. So what happens, their minds open to that submental influence because you put the question mark in their genetics. When you were carrying them in your stomach, you put the question mark in their genetics because you didn't know what the hell you was doing. You don't understand. You laid up and you spread your legs for somebody, some submental, and you was on a submental state. You didn't understand. You was in a state of confusion, so you put that question mark in their DNA. And you did further by exposing them to things that had no real rhyme or reason. That wasn't about their evolution, about the continuation. You couldn't teach why it is that they belonged and what they were supposed to be doing. What was the purpose of them being here? In real words, in real actions. You wasn't doing that. So you opened them up to that submental state. You made it easy for these people in society to produce this, to foster this alternative lifestyle, as they call it, or this so-called progressive mindset in the children. You made it easy. So you aided in discontinuing your bloodline. When your daughter ended up with another girl, it's not going to be no grandchildren for you. When your son ended up with a man, there ain't going to be no grandchildren for you. The bloodline discontinues because it started with you. It started with your confusion. It started with the man that you laid with who was confused. And like I said, when you gave birth to these children, they came out confused. Everything starts with the mind first and foremost. Nothing it's just physical. That's the problem with black people. Black people think they want to be reactionary and blame everything on society and what happens, but it never starts with them. People can suggest things to you, but if you're open to receive it, then you're going to receive it. Same thing they can do with your children. They suggest things to your children, and they're open because you didn't give them any. When they were open to receive something, you couldn't give them anything. You gave them nothing but confusion. But here comes this society that gives them things that appear to be progressive, and it's all laid out in pamphlets. It's laid out in a movement, because if you notice, they give this society, a homosexual society, they give it a cause, they give it movements, they give it groups, they give it all kinds of things. They give it a structure that your children can follow because they want structure to follow. They don't care if it's confused. They don't know the difference. They don't know. They don't understand this. They dealing with confusion. They don't care. They just see a structure there. Like I said, you see gay clubs now for young kids, you gay groups, support groups, and things like that because they're giving a structure, something that you didn't do, something that you refused or you couldn't do or you didn't know how to do. You just put them around a bunch of confused people, people who had no idea, people who were vibrating on that submental state themselves, and you yourself were vibrating on that submental state. So you already opened them up. You might have had these questions in your bloodline already yourself. Why am I here? That's where it all starts. What am I here for? What is my purpose? You understand? The men who know what they're here for, who have a purpose, they always turn out the best bloodline, the best genetic. Right? They always turn out the best bloodline, the best genetic. And if they don't get it right, they continue making children. Somebody's going to get it right. The women, like I said, you men be careful of these women that you lay with, because she might not understand why she's here. And she'll put the question mark in your genetics and your DNA. Same marker she'll put on your child. She'll open him up to suggestions, or she'll open her daughter up to suggestions, because her mind is not right, because she's not receiving that intelligence to continue forward. She will kill your bloodline. She will kill your genetic. He will kill your bloodline and your genetic. That's why it's important for us to start laying down and mating and mixing with people who are on a high level mentally. That's important. I'm not talking about your so-called educated Negroes and things. I'm not talking about them, because they're in a submental state themselves. There's no logic or any real common sense or logic or anything with them. They're just following and repeating what white people say and what the educational system says. That's all they're following. They'll sit up here and they'll talk about the progressiveness of homosexuality. That's not that's not even dealing with intelligence at all. Like I said, this is not a broadcast to bash anybody or their sexual leanings or things like that. It's not about that. It's beyond that. It's people who are open up to receive these suggestions. It's people that are born with these questions in their head through their genetics, through their DNA, that you've opened up to them. Right? I'm not sure, but I think Dr. York even referred to it. I heard a sister say, I think he referred to it as a genetic kiss. I'm not sure about, because I never really delved into it. I don't really read anybody's stuff, but I think that's what he was making reference to. But don't quote me, I'm not sure. I'm just saying that you open yourself up for these things. It's easy to make suggestions to people when they're at a submental state. This world is based in a submental state, right? You hang around people who are vibrating on a submental state. You'll see it more and more as you're supposed to be rising mentally. You will see people who are on a certain level who are not moving. By being around certain people, you are producing your genetic to come that homosexuality, that state of confusion, that sexual confusion. By being around just regular people out here, you will produce a genetic that is based in confusion. By interacting with people who are in a submental state, you will produce children who are sexually confused. Why? Because everybody in the submental state that are walking around here are confused. You understand? Because what does confusion mean? To break apart something. Aren't black people constantly talking about being individuals? Are we not in the individual mindset? So that's confusion. Con, against, fusion, coming together. Do we not have an individual mindset out here as black people? Do we not have that? People in general have that. An individual out for themselves mentality. So that is a people who are based in a state of confusion, who are moving on a submental level. But your people who are of your elite, the people that control this thing, they move in a collective always. They're not in that submental state with you. They're producing bloodlines among bloodlines, even though they might have that in their genetic, and those question marks in their genetic too, but their bloodline, they make sure their bloodline continues on. You understand? They make sure they teach their children what their purpose is, something that we once did. Y'all don't do that. You understand? The purpose is confused. These people, like I said, who are heads of these movements, these so-called black groups and movements, they vibrate on a submental state too. Why do you know that? Because they keep doing the same thing over and over again. Like I said, that produces confusion in your children. You understand? When you telling your child, well, we have to continue on because we have to go with the whole mindset of what was going on. We've been following, Christian religion, culture, this, that, and the third, and they after a while be like, they looking at it and they seeing it going in a rotation. They like, well, why I got to keep doing this? What else is there for me to do beyond this? Why do I got to keep doing this? And then they fall into that submental state. They're open. Questions start popping up out of their minds. Questions about their sexuality because they've already, like I said, they've already got these things stirring in society already. They're looking to induce it and bring it out of you because they know they can capture your child's imagination with this. Because you couldn't capture their imagination with anything. You couldn't. Your imagination is not captured. You go to these people and you're seeking answers just as they go to society in the submental state and they're seeking answers about their sexual confusion. Right? They think that, they're with their friends and things like that and, these ideas in their head about, same sex this and same sex that. Well, it might start with two guys, they friends and things like that. They feel a closeness toward each other and whatnot. That's promoted as being, male, so-called male bonding, right? And they try to turn it to something else. But if you have a question in your head, if you don't understand what your purpose is, then you can open your mind up to receive that next thing, you connected with somebody like that. You're doing these things. You think this means that. Because we close, we friends and whatnot, it means something else. See, because they don't promote closeness between men and women anymore in the so-called black race. They don't promote that. What do they promote? Me and my homies. Right? They promote me and my homies. They show more of a closeness between men and men than men and women in the so-called black race. Confusion. The whole purpose of men and women coming together was to form a bond to continue forward. As I said on a show a long time ago when I was talking about this question mark, or I didn't call it a question mark then, but I call this now, that, they start off by putting boys against boys and girls against girls, and, they're not putting boys and girls together and letting them play together and growing them up together and, becoming coming together and, becoming husband and wife and things like this, a natural progression in life, and they go from friends to husband and wife, lovers to children, things like that. That's not the natural procession anymore because there's a disconnect. All this is taking place gradually, breakdown. But like I said, y'all started it. We started it. We didn't have these questions in the ancient world. Places like Egypt, Nubian, we didn't have these questions. You notice that? Because back then, we understood our purpose for being here. We understood the continuation of a bloodline. We understood the purpose for being here. We don't got that no more. It's nothing. It's they understood that it was they said in the ancient world they came from the bloodline and the genetic of God. So it was impossible to think that you would be here to be hooked up with a woman, be hooked up with another woman, or man with another man. We didn't even think that was possible. That was biologically incorrect. But like I said, you can convince people of anything once you pull them into that submental state. Once you open yourself up and you open your children up and you leave them disconnected, you leave them out there, you don't explain their purpose, you can open them up to anything. And that's what happened. They're open. The question mark is there. You left the door open. So now these people could come in and foster things in you. Foster children. Remember that? What was the foster children program about? The children would go out, or the Fresh Air Fund. What was that about? Remember, how many of you remember that back years ago? I remember this back 20, 30 years, 20, 25 years ago. This is where you had young black kids who would go from the inner cities and go live upstate with, white families and stuff like that. This was, and they spend like a month up there and things like that. Wonder why that was. You remember that? Yeah. Do you think that was a mental reshaping of something, or a mental forming of something? Was it just about kids having a good time and just being in the woods and running free and stuff like that? No. Because, you could just send kids to camp, right? But what was that about? Foster families. What are they fostering? Because as I explained before, fostering means to bring about something in people. When you foster something in someone, you're bringing about something. So if you put people with a foster family, that family's trying to foster something in your child, right? Or you put children who are in adoption agency, they're trying to foster something in your child. Take care of something. They say that foster is to take care of. Well, foster is actually to bring about something. Question? Question mark? Submental. Introducing. Opening them up to a new idea. That's what that movie Precious was all about. If you checked out the sign, it was all about opening her up to that mindset, to that lifestyle. That's what that was about. Fostering something in her mind. You understand? The mental is very strong. It's everything. I said everything. All things are mental. Right? And even you opening your children up is mental to that. Putting that question mark in their DNA and their genetic. All of that is mental. Right? All of that's done. Look back at your fathers. Look back at your mothers. Look at their lives and see and ask them. Because if you ever want to know why you have these questions about your sexuality, your children have these questions, or let's say you're a young person, you have this question about your sexuality, look back at your parents. Look back at your parents and ask your mother or your father, if he's around, ask them, why did y'all have me? What was your purpose for having me? Why am I here? What do you want to? What did you want to do in your life? What is your point and purpose for being here? If they can't really give you a real answer, then you have the answer about your own questions in your life and your sexual confusion, because you were created in a state of sexual confusion. What do I mean by that? When your mother and father were having sex to make you, whether it was a mistake, whether somebody forgot to pull out or wear a condom or whatever the case may be, that was a state of sexual confusion. They didn't know if they wanted you here or not. So that means that was a question mark. That was the first question mark on your genetics. They didn't even know if they really wanted you here. Was it just a hot night of sex, or was it that they really wanted you here? Ask yourself these things. Then you'll know if you had a purpose here. Because based on that, you know whether you brought your children here for a reason or not. You'll understand that. My father told me, he said that, reason why you was born, he said, because he said my brother who was older than me, he tells me that, I didn't want you to be alone. He said he didn't want my brother to be alone. He said because he grew up without brothers his age, so he said they made sure, him and my mother made sure that I was right behind my brother, because they didn't want my brother to be alone. So in that essence, they had a purpose for me, even though it was a small purpose and whatnot. And that was to be help my brother out and grow up and have somebody, a companion for him to grow up with. That was a purpose for me, right? Always have a purpose for your children when you lay down and make these children. Because if you do not, you're going to produce a question mark in them of why they're here. You make them in a state of sexual confusion. You know, you just jumping on top of each other and grumping and somebody get pregnant. Like I said, you then open up your genetic with a question mark. It wasn't your plan to continue your bloodline necessarily with this person. You don't know, like I said, you got with that guy because he looked good, or he had long hair, he had this kind of hair, and you don't know what this person is inside. He was talking a good one, he was dropping knowledge, and he was a thug or whatever the case may be, and you went and you had a kid with him, right? You just opened up your genetic to you just opened up a can of sexually confused worms. You just opened up a child who's going to have a question about his sexuality now. Go back and look at these children right now who are sexually confused. How much you want to make a bet? Their father's probably not there. Their mother's not there. And if they're there, they're not really there. They're absent mentally. They don't understand what their purpose is here. They just, like I said, they just jumped on top of each other and had sex, and that was it. You know? There was no point to them. There was no point to them making these children. You understand? There was no point. Like I said, we started off. And they realize in the society that you are letting forward a bunch of children who have a mental disconnect. When they look and they see that, there's no father in your children's lives, you're the prime targets for them to foster something in your children. They offer your children these after-school programs and, all these things where they teaching your children certain things that you don't know much about. You're not privy to in these programs, certain ways they introducing to them and programming them to think a certain way. And you like it's all good because they out of your hair. You ain't got to deal with it. You go to work and you ain't got to worry about them. They got an after-school program, and next thing you know, your kids is somewhere, doing whatever. They experimenting sexually. The opposite sex, same sex, they experiment because you left them open. You bred them in a state of confusion. There was no man for you. No man. You came to no man, and no man came to you and didn't say, you know what? I like how your mind is, brother. I want to bear your bloodline, your genetic, your seed. Will you lay with me? Or a brother come to a sister and be like, sister, you ain't got nobody. I want us to continue our bloodline. You think me and you can lay down and have children together, and I'll take care of and this person. I'm not just saying go up and do that to anybody, but ask that person. These are conversations we're going to have to start having in the future if we want to produce children who are not confused. See, because then there's a reason for them to be here. Right now, you got 80 to 90% of the children here really have no reason to be here. They really serve no purpose. That's why they're walking around in a sexually confused state. Because like, what's next? I might as well that's their mindset. This is real. Like I said, we're not doing the reactionary thing like the black race do, where they want to blame the white man, they want to blame society, they want to blame everybody for their children being gay. I agree with the gay, like I said, the gay people when they say when you born gay. I agree with them. I totally agree with them 100%. However, like I said, that's fostered in children from the connection of the parents. That's brought out in the children. You don't know that man that you laid down with or that woman you laid down with. You don't know if they had those sexual leanings. You don't know that. You understand? All of this plays a part in what goes into their minds. By just this question alone, you can offset the testosterone and the estrogen in your children. Just by that mental suggestion. Or that mental deficiency in your connection with that person that you laid down with. You can offset their testosterone and estrogen levels. You can offset it. You understand? You can offset certain things. Just like they said, you got the power to heal yourself if you constantly thinking about things, and then eventually you will produce you will come across something, right? If you start to think about wanting to get better, you will eventually come across something. If your mind is strong enough, you will eventually come across something that will aid in healing you. You understand? If you have a purpose for being here, you will come across something that will aid in healing you. You will open up that suggestion, and it will be sent to you in the future state through your bloodline, through your genetic that is still here existing. They will send that to you. Your children, your grandchildren will send certain things to you to heal you because you're supposed to be here. But if you're not, you'll die because you're not meant to continue because you were produced by confused people. So if your children, let's say your children don't get it in this time and they confused, and you're trying to explain to them, or hopefully they get it in their time where they're supposed to be, and you're trying to explain it to them, and it takes, then that could offset that sexual confusion in them. That will offset that. You understand? It'll totally set things straight, as as I put it. It'll set things straight. Now they have a purpose for being here. It will induce their attraction toward the opposite sex. You understand? One of my biggest attractions to women is the thought of continuing my bloodline. That might sound strange. It's not what people think it is. Oh, she got a fat behind. She look good. Because even all of that, I'm going to show you something. Even in all of that, looking at women with big butts and big breasts, all that is based on reproduction and carrying children. If you ever noticed that, all the things that we attracted to women for, the feminine things that we attracted to women for as men, is based on sexual reproduction in children. The big breasts are for nursing the children. The big hips is for carrying the children. The big behind, is for carrying the children. And the women are built to carry children. Notice we're not really, when men are not really attracted to other women of race, like white women, like a lot of times they're not shaped to really carry children, and their breasts are not, they're just not built for that. But we tend as black men to like robust women with big breasts and behinds and hips and things like that, because all that goes into carrying children. All that attraction is based on what? Carrying children. And that's the same way I see it. That's the same way the men and our bloodline saw it, which gave us more of an attraction, because we looked at these women as carrying our future bloodline and our genetic. That was the continuous thought of this woman, beyond just her physical thing, because then if that's not there, she's just a piece of meat. You understand? She's just a piece of meat. And one piece of meat ain't no different than another piece of meat, because if you're looking at her behind and she's just a piece of meat, you can look at another man. You can look at a man, and he's just a piece of meat. And that's the disconnect where you see a lot of these guys who end up with these same-sex things. Like I said, a mouth is a mouth, a butt is a butt. It don't matter to them. You understand? It's all the same thing. These guys who become bisexual, they end up in jail, they homosexual, and they doing what they doing in there. Like I said, it's all the same thing to them. There's no forward picture or bigger picture beyond just a woman being something to screw on. I have just to have physical pleasure with. It's nothing beyond that. That's the disconnect. So I'm gonna play a little bit of music. I need me a little break. What do I want to play? Aya, you're not the only one. We'll be right back. I want y'all to think about that for a minute. I'm going to say it again if there's any confusion. I'm saying it funny. But I'm saying it again if there is any confusion in the chat room. Yes, you are born gay. And you are born gay because you are producing gay children in your conception. I said you are producing gay children in your conception of them. What is I said the title of this broadcast is Sexually Confused Young Black People. If you produce a people in a sexually confused state, if you produce a people sexually in conception, then you're gonna produce sexually confused people, right? If you're having children and you really having no purpose, you really didn't intend for them to be here, you have no purpose for them really being here other than, like I said, that you just screwing and that somebody got pregnant or whatever, and there's really no idea for them being here, then you're going to produce those kind of children. You're going to produce sexually confused children because they were produced in a sexually confused state. You had no purpose for making them. This is the future race, the God race, the Amen being's way of taking those children out of the future equation. They took the scales in that genetic mutation. Right? They tip the scales. Does testosterone go one way? Does estrogen go another way? Who decides these things? Like I said, they are not part of the evolution. Those children that you are having who are sexually confused are not part of the evolution of the bloodline of a race of a continuing people. They're not part of that evolution. How could they be part of the evolution if they're not going to bring forth children? That's logical. It's not an emotional thing. How can they be part of the evolution? You understand? They can't be part of the evolution. They can't be part of the genetic bloodline. They can't be because they have no purpose for existing. They live for themselves. They only care about their connection. Their leanings and their desires, like I said, that's opened up in them already. To straighten out their mindset or to take them from those leanings, they would have to be amongst people and they would have to understand what their purpose is in the continuation of a bloodline. You understand? Then these leanings wouldn't come anymore. They would disappear. See, people will say, "Oh, you can't stop feeling that way," and this, that, and the third. Yeah, like I said, you are born that way. But like I said, the fixing of that is a mental thing, and then a physical thing. People downgrade the whole thing of saying, if you gave men more more testosterone and whatnot, that would fix the problem. They wouldn't be that can produce your predators. Your predator type men who they'll come off all manly and beating on their chest and whatnot, but they still gay. Because they were created in a state of confusion. Like I said, trace back all of these children who have these questions right now. A lot of them come from broken homes or disconnected parents who are not part of anything, who stand for nothing, who are not about anything, nothing real anyway. You trace all that back. It's factual in the evolution of a people. It's factual in the evolution of a people. You have to look at the evolution of a people and look at look at us before we had this problem and prior to that. I'm going to show you what I mean. In Africa, amongst the primitive Africans, amongst the your Western Africans, they practiced homosexuality, right? A lot of them practiced it as a ritual in the culture. Now, a lot of people go, "Oh, that ain't true. They ain't do no homosexuality in Africa." Yes, they did. They have rituals where they were practicing in their rituals and they were doing homosexuality. They just didn't call it homosexuality, but they was doing it, right? Because it was just about them and their little tribe and this, that, and the third. And it wasn't really no big thing. It was about their little thing. It wasn't no real continuation of the bloodline like that. And then you had our people in the East and things like that, which where the majority of black people in America come from. They practiced the whole bloodline thing, and the marrying and the genetics of the women and the children and things like that, and marry for royalty. This is where the Europeans got this from. They got this from us in Egypt and Nubia because we were doing the marrying in the blood and the bloodlines and stuff like that. Who we were carefully marrying because it was about the continuation of a bloodline. So that was not even a option or even logical to be doing if we continue in the bloodline because you have a purpose, right? And in that purpose, you strengthen the bloodline. And when you strengthen the bloodline, you strengthen that desire for women. It all goes hand in hand. Same way where you women, you strengthen your desire for a man. When you look at a man and you say, "Oh, I want him to be my baby daddy," or "I want," because you thinking already children. You thinking with a man who attracts you and turns you on. Okay, you thinking physically, but then you start thinking, "Oh, I want him to be my baby daddy." That's natural. You start thinking of creating a bloodline with this man. Because that's the full on attraction of being with this man. To continue or create a bloodline with this man. To open the door for that. But if you just jumping up and laying down with anybody because you want to get off or you just want to do this, that, and the third, you open the door for that. So you're going to produce children who are going to be born this way. You understand? You're going to produce children that are born this way. Because, like I said, breaking apart the connection of the chromosomes and whatnot and breaking apart the DNA between a man and a woman is the confusion, the gelding, the physical gelding of a person. We have to understand that these things start off mentally in us. Once we start attacking our problems mentally, right? Once we start attacking all of our ills in society mentally, going back before, not blaming society, not blaming the white man or anybody else, because it's not their fault for you producing, for these children coming out this way. It's your fault. A lot of our people don't want to hear that because they don't want to take responsibility for that. It's not their fault. It's your fault. Always. Somebody missed the bigger picture. I'm going to take a call. 423, you on the air?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, how you doing, brother?
I'm all right. It's I kind of caught the program a little late, but it's interesting that you brought this discussion up. You know, because I have received a message last November, and I mean, it really it had me almost just about to go crazy. But it took a whole year for that message to really resonate and for that message to be cleaned up, you know. But it was kind of interesting that you brought up this subject about, you know, the thoughts, the mental thoughts, because the mental thoughts plays more into what's really happening than the physical thought. Because if it can be cleared up in the mental perception from a higher race, then it'll start to heal itself in the physical realm. So, you know, I was just like, okay, when I, heard you start talking, I was like, what are you talking about? And as I listened, you talking about something really deep, man.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you talking about cleaning up something that's degraded the race for hundreds and thousands of years, thousands of years, and it's, it's quite interesting that this conversation, because I received a message last year and I didn't comprehend it at all, and it seemed like it took me a whole year to really comprehend or have some type of understanding of what was going on. It took a whole 360-some days, but it was this time last year that I received the message. And it was like yesterday I received that same message, but it was letting me know that what I received the year before, I already took course. It's already beginning to manifest in the mind and begin to cleanse. And there's some interesting things that's been happening on a universal level, and I see it. And once it happens, it affects everything, But I just thought I'd comment on that because, what you're speaking on, you're speaking on something that's way, way up there, And because I've been facing that message that I received for a whole year.
What was the message?
I seen this woman that came to me in a vision. She was carrying an animal, but the animal was still living. You could see the animal moving. You could see its eyes moving. She was actually carrying it. And right by her was a pit. It's like an open grave. And I'm like, what is going on, And I dealt with it for a whole year. It kept coming back to me. And I'm thinking I'm doing the right thing about doing this and doing that, and it kept coming back to me. And, I've been facing that, and I've seen it in the papers about different things that have been happening with this particular animal in the papers. What's been going on, how the animal is been dealing with people, Yeah, this woman came to me in a vision. She was carrying an animal.
Okay.
And I noticed she was carrying an animal, but I also noticed it was a grave. It was like somebody dug a grave and she was standing right by it. And then I was like, okay, I know she's not finna put the animal in the grave, in the pit. Because I could see the animal eyes moving. I'm like, it's not dead. So what does the pit mean?
What was the animal? What kind of animal was it?
I don't really want to say right there, man. Oh, what can I do? I want to tell you, you know what I'm saying, but
was it a sheep or a lamb?
It was a dog.
Okay.
It was a dog.
So how is this symbolic to what we're talking about?
That's why I say it's deep. When you talking about on one level, I received it on a whole nother level. It goes beyond just your earthly relationships.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Okay.
I finally found that number because I had lost the phone.
Okay.
And then I had to go back to some emails and get some numbers. But I finally found that number, and I'll get back with you on that level.
Okay.
I think that may be a little bit too deep for everybody. I know we own that level, but I don't want to open up too many doors right now.
All right. When you get that together, then you come back in.
Yeah, but I just thought I'd share that with you.
All right.
Because when you speak on something, I always like listen to it. And it's like it's catching me on a whole nother level, but it'd be the same thing.
Okay.
So but yeah, that's what it was. Okay, man. Thank you, man.
All right. Thanks, Lebra.
Okay.
All right. I'm gonna take another call. 510. 510. You on there?
Hey, what's up, Nuben?
Hey, what's going on, Reg?
Oh, chilling. Man, I want to see what ask you a question about like children that have been like molested or raped,
Mm-hmm.
and even in their adolescent stage, as well as from being a toddler or whatnot into their adolescent stage, and then they turn out to be homosexuals as adults. This happens. This happens a lot. I personally know people that it has happened to, also in the female too.
Mm-hmm.
But, what is your opinion about that?
Well, my thoughts on that are that, if that's not in you, there's nothing that can produce that in you. When people say that, society, somebody was raped, that turned them out, that will not produce that in you, because I know people personally who were molested as children, and they are still straight. They like women, they don't like men, things like that. So nobody can produce nothing in you. Contrary to what black people say about this, this society making our kids gay. No society made your kids gay. That, like I said, that has to be in their genetics in the first place. Now, certain things will bring that out of them, but that has to already be there. You understand? You have to that people use that as an excuse, but that's already there. That's, like I said, that comes from, you have children that are born gay, and certain things, like I said, will bring that out of them. Like I said, when you're laying down, you're making these children and whatnot, and you really have no rhyme or reason. You didn't plan for them to be here. You didn't have any mindset of what you were, opening the door to, or who you was laying with, or what their thought process was, or what state and mind they was in, that they brought that into your genetic. You didn't check all that out, because, like I said, a lot of times, a lot of people just laying down with the disconnect mentally. There's nothing beyond just getting a piece of tail. That's it.
Yeah, so
you
basically
open up the door.
Basically what you're saying is it's already within them, but events that happen to them or could trigger it, or even if society gives them a choice whether to be, that's also a trigger.
Yeah.
Oh,
yep.
Okay.
Yep. They open the door. It's like a suggestion, because you know how you know that we hear all this gay stuff. We've been hearing gay stuff and all this submental gay stuff all the time, and we ain't gay.
Yeah.
So why does it bring that out of them, and it don't do nothing for us?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because that was already there in them. It's just like I said, that it just triggered them for them to feel free to come out with it. Like I said, black people always want to blame somebody else for something they did. Like I said, We in the bright race, we taking responsibility for if we producing children like that. It was something with us that was off to bring that to us.
Yeah. Hey, so what about if a child asks their parents, well, why did you guys decide to have me? And the parents said, well, we just loved one another.
I mean, that's not an answer. They asked why did you decide to have them. That's not an answer. That you just dealt with you and your woman. It ain't got nothing to do with them. They asked about them.
Yeah. That could bring about confusion too.
Yeah. Always have your children with a purpose in mind. See, that's what black people don't do. They just lay up screw, and if somebody get pregnant, then we gonna have some kids. They always have your children with a purpose. Always pick the right kind of people to have your children with. With a purpose. It always should be the purpose, because if not, you're going to produce people with no purpose. And that's what your gay society, young black people are. They're people with no purpose, and people with no purpose will not continue into the future. That's why they're being marked with that genetic.
Yeah, that makes sense, brother. That makes sense.
All right.
So, what was the other caller talking about? I didn't get anything from that.
Well, the brother got to get it back together. I guess he'll get it all together in his mind and whatnot. And when he get it together, he'll call us back with it. So I guess.
Okay, I was just checking. I was just checking because I didn't want to miss nothing. If something was being brought to the table, I didn't want to miss nothing. But you didn't. Okay, I get it. All right, man. Hey, thanks a lot, man. I'll continue listening. Take care.
Right. Okay, you too. Next call, 757. 757, you on the air?
Yeah, peace. Greetings.
All right.
Want to add on for the night, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. One part I want to add on is that I think a percentage of it deals with the grandparents, and with the grandparents not giving the children some type of vision on the relationship between men and women, or males and females. They kind of just let them go. They cue and they just let them go. And a lot of times growing up, the grandparents is not in their lives, I feel, in order to pass down basic relationships. The parents definitely is not in the picture as much, because a lot of people are working and a lot of people are preoccupied with their own selfish desires. So again, there's a degree of raising where children are missing these days. It's about the basic relationships, and so I say they start carrying that out any way that they want to. It's unguided. You know what I'm saying? I respect the reasoning that y'all was just adding on with about people born, but I got another particular point. I don't want to say just that I disagree, but I think that it's a monkey see, monkey do attitude that has occurred in the last 20-some years. You know what I'm saying? I know since I've been alive, you know what I'm saying, 30-some years since I've been alive. And I know growing up, you know what I'm saying, we didn't carry that way. All right, so now it's like a monkey see, monkey do when people see, oh, it's cool for them to do it, so then they start doing it. Because I've seen a lot of sisters, they become lesbians, and they already didn't have children. So I don't know. I can't just initially say they was born that way. I'm like, it's a cop out, because they didn't have a good relationship with the man. Then they sit there and say, oh, I want to have a relationship. Even some of them are heavy set. Some of them bodies are not the same as some of the dancers or the cute girls or whatever. So they go, I still want somebody to love me. And now, because society has an easy access to it, then I feel like people do the monkey see, monkey do, and it really ain't in their hearts, because people going back and forth. You hear lesbians going back with dudes, and you hear dudes still going and sleeping with women. So I feel like it's more of them, like you said, mentally not having a purpose. I do agree with that, because if you are focused on your purpose in life, some of them things is just not effective. But, I just wanted to add in on that part. I really feel like it's a monkey see, monkey do thing, and it's like the more people that they can see doing it, the more they're going to do it. And if they stop doing it, then they'll stop doing it. It's like with our peoples, it's like fads. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
to me, Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, here's the thing with that. We seeing the same things they seeing, but why are we not doing it?
You said why we not doing it?
Yeah.
Because I feel like some of us are old souls, you know what I'm saying, and some are new souls. And some of us that are old souls can kind of perceive what our purpose is. It's people that just come out that's doing what they supposed to do, and by, you know what I'm saying, by their divinity or, you know, of their spirit, they're doing it. It ain't affecting us because we have a purpose here. You just said it.
But you got old homos. You got old homos, you got old lesbians. But my thing, what I'm saying is that if you disconnected to something, if you're disconnected from something, and this is how that whole thing works, because biologically, a biological bloodline is a link or a line to something. If you are disjointed or disconnected from that bloodline, then what happens? Then you do things like that. You do things against the bloodline because you're confused or broken apart from the bloodline. You're broken apart, and this is, like I said, this society is based on individualism and picking up or fostering that mentality in people who are broken from the bloodline mentally, who have no continuation or no connection to it. So that's what they produce that. You understand?
Okay.
That's, you know, that comes from, like I said, when you laying down with women and you just having kids and ain't no real rhyme or reason other than you just trying to, get your orgasm on and that's it. You're gonna open the door to produce children like this.
Okay. Now you just mentioned the old.
Now let me just go back because I had this in my thoughts. Let me just go back just for a second. Now you mentioned the women who go and try and they laying up with other women and whatnot because they trying it, but that curiosity a lot of times is there with women. But women already start off in the society. They do things. They do things that are semi-lesbianic anyway. If I could use the word lesbianic, they do stuff like, you'll see women touch each other's breasts or kiss each other and stuff like that. Now, if you see a man doing that, you're gonna be like, you're gonna look like it's weird. But women, they do stuff that's semi that way anyway. They touch each other. They don't have no problem with. They like feel my breasts or how my butt feel. Or they kiss each other and stuff like that. They all hugged up on each other. You won't think nothing about that when you see two women do that.
Okay. Yeah.
So
yeah.
So they naturally, like I said, they'll sit up and they'll do stuff like that. And women, when women do, they do they thing, whatever they do in sex, they bumping and grinding all up on and kissing each other. They're not really doing anything. They're not really, penetrating each other. So they really not doing nothing.
Right. Right.
That's not really considered no sex.
Right.
Let's be for real here. We being real here. That's not really. But it's just until they start trying to live in that environment and try to actually mimic a real relationship, that's when the disconnect happens.
Okay. I'm in agreement with that. I'm in 100% agreement because I know myself, if I come amongst a lesbian female, she's going to know that she's a woman because I exert masculine energy. And I ain't never had that problem, regardless. Whether it was old or young, they do recognize their gender amongst a time of being amongst me. You know what I'm saying? So I think in the relationship with each other, then they do realize that, and they are kind of playing or whatever. And like you said, you could go on the stint. Now with males, is a different thing. You know what I'm saying?
They up here trying to penetrate each other, and that's so they doing that and touching each other. Like I said, when you get a woman who goes into the whole lesbian hardcore, what they call a dyke, when she does that, that's that testosterone coming out of her, where that's an offset balance again, breaking that bloodline, breaking that line, and that breaking that biological bloodline, coming out in that individual mindset, and she's disconnected. Because, like I said, somebody laid down 9 times out of 10, made her, and it wasn't no real rhyme or reason for her being here. So she's like, I ain't, I'm just doing me. I ain't caring about no kids. You'll hear their minds. I don't care about no kids. I'm just me and my lover and that's it. That's their mindset, and that's their individual. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's right. That's dumb. But I'm explaining to you why that is.
Right. I'm with you. Yo, I appreciate you adding on with me. I'm gonna let you get back to the show, brother.
All right.
All right, peace.
All right. 423 again. 423.
Yeah, I wanted to. That guy, somebody you had just talked to, he didn't quite comprehend what I was speaking of, and I'm gonna see if I can explain it a little bit better. Okay. From what I gathered when I seen the woman with the dog, and she had a open grave, that must have been a nature. You know what I'm saying? That nature had to die in order to move on or progress. So it could be like when I first began to close my eyes and see, like if I'm sitting right here and I close my eyes and I don't see nothing but darkness, all of a sudden I seen a little light. So I sat there and I was real quiet, and as I zoomed in on that light while my eyes were closed, sitting down, I seen something walking on 4. That what I seen that was walking on 4 eventually stood up on 2. So there was some type of growth and development or some type of evolvement that was going on. And just to try and bring about a little comprehension on what I was saying, the nature that was on 4 had to die. Okay. It has to go through a purification before you really can come in tune with walking on 2. Okay. It's like coming out of that animalistic nature that you be talking about and stepping upright.
Okay.
You know, so it's like a process that you have to go through. It's like a purification, like what you talk about all the time. You have to stop doing those things that keep you in the animalistic mind, animalistic nature. Okay. Come off the 4 legs, step up on 2. Give up this, give up that. You know, and for me to comprehend that, it took 365 days.
Okay.
So that's what I was trying to explain. And I can go a little bit deeper.
That's fine, brother. Like I said, let's just hold it till it all comes. So you just hold it. Like I said, don't.
It came to me now, but I just had to explain to that brother because he was like he didn't comprehend it. But that's basically what I was saying, and that's basically what that being was trying to get me to see this time last year when she had the dog on her shoulder and she had an open grave. That animalistic nature had to die.
Okay.
That's what that was.
All right. Thanks for sharing that, brother. All right.
Okay, you're welcome.
All right. I'm going to play a little music. I know if Reginald wanted to come back, I'm going to play a little music for the LBG community. I'm playing funny. I know y'all favorite is Diana Ross. I'm dedicating it to you guys who listening. Diana Ross. I want to make this plain and clear, that this severing of a bloodline, like I said, is produced way before these children get here. This severing of a bloodline and producing children who are sexually confused is done before they get here. It is made and laid down when you lay down and make these children. Always have a purpose for your children. I'm glad that I waited into my 40s to start having children or to have children because, in my earlier days, I wouldn't have had any purpose for children. I would have just been laying down, screwing, and putting babies here. And I would open my children up to that sexual confusion because I want to continue my bloodline, the Menkare's bloodline. I want to continue. I want to continue with a woman who wants to continue her bloodline, where there's no confusion between neither one of us, where there's no question about why we're bringing these children here. You understand? Because I know that if there's a question in my mind, if there's a question in her mind, then there's going to be a question in their minds. We breed that question in these children all the time. You understand that? If you notice, I'm noticing it was a couple of sisters I know that was part of this, so-called conscious, intelligent knowledge movement of, blackness and things like that. And these 2 sisters, I noticed because I'm a keen observer of things. I pay attention. Both of them had those leanings toward, being attracted to women. I noticed that because these sisters had those leanings to being attracted to women, they're no longer part of and knowledge, consciousness, whatever you want to say, blackness. I mean, they're not part of it. They pretty much amongst everybody else in society now. They want to go and chill with everybody else and be amongst everybody because they're slowly making their way into that submental state. They always leave away from that. They'll always leave away from movements and things like that have a focus and a focal point and a group of a purpose for being here to continue the bloodline. They'll gradually move away from that, right? And they will move closer to people who are on the submental level who are okay with this sexual confusion. This biological or bi-illogical way of thinking, this sexual confusion. They move closer to the submental state and closer to people who are more accepting of that, which is the general populace now. They move closer to those type of people. They start, making statements against, so they start finding problems with the, the knowledge that you're dropping or what the point of the movement is, because they personally don't feel they fit in anymore. So they start moving gradually away. They start saying certain things. They start wanting to be around certain people. So they'll gravitate towards sexually confused people as well. They'll gravitate toward gay and lesbian people or the sexually confused or the people, where they'll say, oh, I'm not sexually confused. I want to be with a man. Or I'm not sexually confused. I want to be with a woman. That is a state of sexual confusion. Like I said, we understand confusion to mean to break apart the fusion of or the coming together of a man and a woman, because only a man and a woman can truly fuse together. Two women can't fuse together. Two men can't fuse together. It would be unnatural. They could, men can fuse together, but it's unnatural, because nothing's being produced. Now, I know a lot of your gay, advocates will say I'm being where's the word they want to say? I'm being anti-gay and saying that I'm not. I'm just straight logical. Whether you want to take it to being anti-gay, that's on you. I'm being straight logical. The true fusion comes between a man and a woman. That's fusion, to create something else, a new bloodline, a biological fusion. If you are doing something against that fusion, then you are confused. You are against the fusion of people coming together. That's real. Homosexuality is a confused sexual state. They're about breaking apart the fusion of men and women coming together. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not judging you people. That's your business. I'm just telling you biologically what it is. It's not about emotion and things like that. No, I don't hate anybody. I don't hate or love you people. I have no hate or love for you people. I'm just stating a fact. You understand? These people, your children gravitate toward these people who are disjointed youths or disjointed or in a disjointed state, a people of confusion, because you bred them in confusion. Or, like the brother said, they didn't have ain't got nothing to do with the grandparents. Because if the grandparents might have had, for example, a purpose for you being here, but then you lost that purpose because they didn't instill it in you. They didn't gear you toward anything. They didn't gravitate you toward anything. So what happens is, and there was no village around or group around to raise the bloodline and the genetic, because that's what stirs up that testosterone and that estrogen. It actually stirs it up physically because of purpose. Like I said, go trace it all the way back to when you women are looking at men and you start thinking about the bigger picture of beyond sex, about I want to have this baby and this, that, and the third. Or you men looking at the women and saying, I want to wife her, I want to make her my woman. You might be looking at her butt and her breast and how good she look, but you start thinking, I want to wife her, I want to make her the mother of my seed and all this other stuff. So you're thinking about the bigger picture. And if she's feeling you beyond that, then that's good. Now, hopefully she is, because if not, that's going to be another disconnect. You understand? She's going to help produce a disconnect in your child, because she just might want you for sex. She might not see the bigger picture, or he might just want you for sex and he won't see the bigger picture. That's a disconnect. That is a person. These are two people that will breed sexually confused people. All right? So, November 25th, Supermen, Superwomen Project. All right? November 25th. We had rhyme and reason for producing children because we are biological people. Notice the word biological. Biological people. So we produced biological bloodlines. We don't produce biological bloodlines. And if you're not producing a biological bloodline, then you're going to produce a sexually confused bloodline. If you're not raising a race of people who understand or have an understanding of why they are biologically supposed to be here and why they are supposed to be continuing, then you're going to produce a sexually confused people who will gravitate toward the submental state. That's it. That's real. So let me answer these questions, and then we're going to get out of here because the intellectual wants his coffee. And people who know me, if I don't get my coffee, I'm kind of grouchy. So, all right, let me see. Like I said, November 25th, Supermen, Superwomen Project. November 25th, Sunday, November 25th. Those of you who are in the New York City area, come on out. Come on out to the in the surrounding areas. All right. What is a submental sexual confusion? The submental sexual confusion is a people who are gravitating in this state on a low mental frequency, who are confused about the biological connection between men and women, the forward motion or movement of the bloodline. They are disconnected. Therefore, this produces a sexual confusion in them where they're open to same-sex relations because there is a confusion there. The confusion is to break apart the fusion or of coming together of a man and woman. Right? Why is it affecting young black people today? Because these children were bred or conceived by one or two sexually confused people, or people who had no real reason for them being here. You understand? If you produce children with no real purpose other than the fact that the two of you were just having sex and somebody just happened to make a mistake and then wear no protection or somebody didn't, pull out or anything like that or use any birth control, if you're just making children like that, then you're going to produce sexually confused people. You're going to produce what they used to call in the old school lust babies. You're going to produce lust babies. So be clear about whether you just want somebody for lust and you want somebody to continue a bloodline with. I don't advocate the lust. That's nice and all that. People are going to do what they do. But, if you make sure you understand what the difference is. All right? When did this start? This starts with conception. This started all the way back when, like I said, we stopped seeing the bigger picture of, having these biological connections with people, mental connections with people. When we stopped forming these mental and biological connections with the opposite sex, then we would it turned to just screwing, and then we just started making babies all out of order. Then we opened the door for these type of children to be born, sexually confused, right? We lost our reason for continuing. We lost our bloodline connection. So, we had this in the past where, our bloodline and our genetic was to continue, and we had a reason for our bloodline and genetic to be here. So we lost that. So we have to get that back in a new society, a new state. That's not going to happen within the black race, by the way, because you would have to teach black people a whole, level of thinking, a different level of thinking, and black people ain't ready to make that step. That's not going to happen. All right, so just forget that. All right. What else? Other questions. Who controls this submental confusion? Well, the powers that be. We actually, I'll say we actually control the submental confusion. Those of us who are laying down making these children. I'm not going to blame that on other people. Now, other people come in, the people that control the society, and they weigh in on that, and they attract to that people that are confused and whatnot, and they make suggestions, and they open the door. But as I said, it's us, that leave the door open for these people to walk in. So it's ultimately our fault. We control this submental confusion in our children by laying down and making them with no rhyme or reason or any purpose for them being here. So they don't understand what they're here for. So like I said, they open to anything. So, we breed this idea in their head, state of confusion. You can lay with anybody as long as you have an orgasm. So that could be man, that could be woman. It don't really matter, That's their mentality. All right. Is this another sign of a race that has outlived its usefulness? Yes. I say that when you start to see our people starting to disappear off the planet, it is usually due to things like this. Because you're going to see a lot of the black race disappear because a lot of young black kids are coming out of the closet now, and they were born as lust babies. They were born in a state of confusion from their parents. So when they have this thing of sexual confusion and they're open to, their hormonal level is thrown off because of this confusion. When this happens, this is the discontinuation of a bloodline because, as I said, a bloodline is only meant to continue when you have people who understand what their purpose is for being here. How can a bloodline continue if you have people who have no idea what they are continuing for? Make sense or not? If you have no purpose, you don't have no reason or understanding of why you're continuing, especially when we're in a time where the society is becoming more mental. If you don't understand what your purpose is for continuing, then you're not going to continue. Simple as that. All right? So it's saying basically that the majority of the black race, when you're producing children like this is saying that your bloodline has outlived its usefulness, which is saying that the black race, as a majority, has outlived its usefulness. That's why they're dying off in this generation by producing children who will not reproduce. Simple as that. Is this a genetic mark? Yes, it is. It is a genetic mark on the black race that has become useless. It has become a genetic mark. You're producing children who have sexual questions about themselves, who are confused, or becoming homosexuals and lesbians because they're not meant to produce your genetic beyond them. So that is a genetic mark on your genes because you didn't force the children. You didn't nurture children together with that man that you chose to lay down with or that woman you chose to lay down with. You had no reason for making them or bringing them here. In other words, you basically made a genetic mistake. You just laid down and you said, oops, I didn't wear a condom or, whatever, So that's what you produced. What does this mean in the continuing future of the black race? This means that a bright race of people who will make children will come out of the black race once they hear this intelligence, and they will logically be able to see what's going on and what's being put to them. We will start to make choices on the women that we lay down with, the men we lay down with. You women, y'all will make the choice on who you lay with. You will have a purpose for bringing your children here in the next realm, something that the generations prior to this didn't have any real reason for bringing them forward. Now, some of our people did have a reason, for bringing the children forward. That's why we are continuing our bloodline. Those of you who had no real reason, you're going to see this pop up in your bloodline and in your genetic more frequently. Okay, this question of sexuality. All right, so that's the end. Come to the end of our broadcast. Join us Friday. I might do the real symbolic truth behind the Jesus story. What does that really mean? I might do that. I haven't decided yet. All right, so we're going to close. November 25th, Supermen, Superwomen Project. Also, if you go over to the State of Mental ebook and podcast store, you will see the 21 logical statements on why more black men are becoming homosexuals today. The State of Mental, on Facebook, the State of Mental's ebook and podcast store. You can purchase that book for $5 on in the podcast room. Okay? All right. So that's it. Who do I want to close with? Yeah, I know what I want to close with. Something I ain't heard in a long time. Let me see. I want to hear a little Star, Unbreakable. Good night.